I'm 83 now, sitting in my quiet living room, watching the sunlight filter through the curtains. I've lived a full life, raised a family, built a home, faced joys and hardships like so many of you in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. But looking back, there's one regret that lingers: sharing too much with my loved ones after I turned 65. It seemed harmless at the time, opening up about personal matters to feel closer. Yet, it stirred up worries, judgments, and tensions I never anticipated. If you're like me, cherishing family bonds while craving peace in your later years, you might wonder, what should we keep to ourselves? Today, I'll share 5 secrets I wish I'd never revealed, lessons learned the hard way for a more serene life. Stick with me, this could save you some heartache. This video is for general educational and inspirational purposes only. Please reflect and consult professionals when applying life lessons. I'm 83 now, and the memory still sits with me like an old photograph tucked in a drawer. It was late summer, 10 years back, when I was 73. We had gathered at the house on Maple Street in a small Ohio town where I'd lived most of my adult life. The maple in the front yard was just starting to turn red at the edges, the way it always did around Labor Day. My daughter flew in from Denver with her husband and 2 teenagers. My son drove over from Columbus with his wife and our youngest grandson, who was 8 and still believed I knew every answer worth knowing. The dining room table was crowded with casseroles, corn on the cob, and my wife's famous apple pie. Though she'd been gone 4 years by then, her recipes lived on in everyone's hands. Laughter bounced off the walls as it always had, stories overlapping, plates passing. After dinner we moved to the living room. Someone turned down the lights, and the conversation softened the way it does when people feel safe together. Retirement had settled over me like a quiet blanket. The factory where I'd worked 38 years was a memory now, the paycheck replaced by Social Security checks and a modest savings account. For the first time in decades I felt unhurried, almost weightless. That's when the words started slipping out. I told them about the night, decades earlier, when I almost walked away from the marriage because the pressure felt unbearable. I spoke of the medical scare in my late 50s that the doctors never fully explained. I mentioned how much money we'd lost in the '08 crash and how I still checked the statements every month like a man waiting for bad news. I shared the quiet disappointment of dreams I'd set aside, travel we never took, a small woodworking shop I never built. I thought I was giving them pieces of myself, the real ones, the way an elder is supposed to. I believed it would deepen the bond, show them I trusted them with my whole story. Instead, I watched worry flicker across their faces, saw questions form behind their eyes, felt the air change just enough to notice. That single evening planted something I couldn't pull back, and over the years that followed I learned, slowly and painfully, that some chapters are meant to stay closed, not out of shame, but out of care for the peace we had all earned the right to keep. The real lesson took years to settle in my bones, long after that evening faded into ordinary days. I had always believed that honesty, full, unguarded honesty, was the foundation of love between generations. Share everything, I thought, so they understand who you really are, so they carry forward the truth of your life. But after 65 the rules quietly change. What once felt like generosity begins to feel like a weight placed on shoulders already carrying their own burdens. I came to see that some secrets are not lies, they are mercy. Not the dramatic kind of secrets that hide betrayal or crime, but the small, human ones. The nights you lay awake wondering if you had failed them as a parent, the money worries that still wake you at 3 in the morning even though the bills are paid, the ache of old regrets that no longer need an audience. When you hand those over to your children or grandchildren, you do not lighten your load, you add to theirs. They start to worry in ways they cannot fix. They offer advice you no longer need. They look at you with new concern instead of the familiar comfort. The easy laughter around the table gets edged with something careful, something guarded. Peace in these later years is fragile and hard-won. It comes from mornings without explanations, from visits filled with stories of their lives rather than yours, from letting them see you as steady rather than vulnerable in every detail. Discretion is not distance, it is consideration. It lets them love the version of you they have always known. The one who fixed things, who listened, who smiled through storms, without the constant shadow of your private struggles. I wish someone had told me sooner that silence can be an act of love, that keeping certain chapters closed protects the warmth we still share. It is a gentle boundary, drawn not from fear or shame, but from the quiet understanding that we have all earned the right to rest without carrying everyone else's unfinished business. In choosing what to hold close, I found the calm I had been searching for all along. Once I began to practice that quiet restraint, the change crept in so gradually I almost missed it at first. Mornings felt lighter. I no longer woke up rehearsing explanations or bracing for the next concerned phone call. When my daughter rang on Sunday afternoons, we talked about her garden, her promotion at work, the funny thing her youngest said at school. She no longer asked in that careful voice whether I was really okay or if I needed help with the bills. The questions simply stopped coming, and in their place came stories, her husband's, the grandchildren's. I listened more and spoke less about myself, and the listening felt like breathing easier. Family visits shifted too. Thanksgiving that next year was the first in a long while where no one steered the conversation toward my health, my past choices, or what I should be doing now that I was retired. We played cards until midnight, teased each other about old photos, watched the kids chase fireflies in the backyard. There was no undercurrent of worry, no sidelong glances when I stood up too slowly. I was just grandpa again. The one who carved the turkey, told the same dad jokes, kept extra quarters in his pocket for the grandkids. They saw steadiness instead of fragility, and that small shift let affection flow freely, without the drag of unspoken concern. Looking back, I recognized the pattern in so many lives around me. A friend in his late 60s confided that after he told his son about an old debt he still carried, the boy started sending money every month, money he could barely spare, because he felt responsible. Another woman I know shared a long-ago miscarriage with her daughters, hoping for closeness, and ended up fielding weekly check-ins that felt more like monitoring than love. We mean well when we open those doors, but the unintended result is often the same. Loved ones begin to carry pieces of our unfinished emotional load. By choosing what to keep private, I gave them permission to see me as whole rather than wounded. The relationships did not grow thinner, they grew kinder, less burdened, more present. In protecting my own peace, I unintentionally protected theirs too, and the quiet that settled over our time together became the deepest kind of connection I had known in years. The 5 things I wish I had kept to myself after 65 were not scandals or dark secrets. They were ordinary pieces of a long life that, once spoken, changed how my family saw me. The first was the full story of money mistakes from decades earlier. I described the bad real estate deal in the 80s, the stock picks that tanked in the 90s, the exact amount we lost when the market crashed in 2008. I thought it would teach them caution. Instead, every time we talked about their own finances, my daughter would pause and say, "Dad, are you sure you're okay now?" My son started offering to look over my statements. What I meant as a cautionary tale became a lingering worry they carried home. The second was details about health episodes beyond routine checkups. I told them about the unexplained chest pains in my late 50s that vanished after tests, the bout of vertigo that lasted months, the way certain foods still upset my stomach years later. They listened with love, but afterward the phone calls came more often. "How are you feeling today? Did you take your pills?" Their concern was real, yet it turned casual visits into quiet medical interrogations. Third came fragments of old family tensions, strained words with my sister over inheritance years ago, the distance that grew with a cousin after a misunderstanding. I shared them thinking honesty would clear the air. It only reopened wounds they had never known existed, pulling them into sides of a story that no longer mattered. The fourth was the quiet dreams I had set aside. The cross-country road trip we planned but never took because of work, the small boat I wanted to restore but sold instead, the evenings I imagined writing down family stories that never got written. Telling them made my children feel they had somehow kept those things from me, even though the choices were mine alone. The fifth was mentioning end-of-life preferences too soon, where I wanted my ashes scattered, what songs should play, who should speak. I thought it would ease their minds later. Instead, it brought a sudden heaviness to gatherings, a reminder of an ending none of us wanted to face yet. Each of these disclosures, offered in moments of trust, quietly shifted the balance. They began to see me not just as the steady father and grandfather, but as someone still wrestling with unresolved pieces. By speaking them aloud, I had invited their protection, their advice, their sorrow, none of which I needed, and all of which dimmed the simple joy we had left to share. Looking back from 83, the clearest truth is how much lighter life became when I learned to hold certain parts of my story close. Those 5 disclosures, money missteps, lingering health details, old family rifts, unfulfilled dreams, premature talk of final wishes, had each, in their own quiet way, dimmed the warmth we shared. Once spoken, they invited concern, advice, and a subtle shift in how my children and grandchildren looked at me. Not with less love, but with an added layer of care that felt more like duty than delight. By choosing silence on those matters, I gave us all room to breathe. Conversations returned to the present, a grandchild's soccer game, a daughter's new recipe, a son's weekend project. No one needed to solve my past or prepare for my future before it arrived. I could sit on the porch swing, watch the leaves turn, and simply be their father, their grandfather, the steady one who still laughed at bad puns and kept the coffee pot ready, without the shadow of unresolved chapters hanging over us. The peace that followed was not dramatic, it was ordinary and profound. Family time felt unburdened, affection flowed without footnotes, and the years I have left became about presence rather than explanation. I no longer carry the quiet regret of having handed over weights I should have carried alone. In guarding those small truths, I protected the larger gift we still have, each other, as we are now, in this gentle season of life. The calm I found was worth every unspoken word. If this resonates, take a moment to reflect on your own boundaries. What might you keep for your peace? Like and subscribe to The Quiet Start for more stories like this. Share your thoughts below. What's one thing you've learned to hold close?